Alright, thank you for the chance given to me. Here I would like to continue the presentation of my partner before. First of all, my name is Dewa Gede Saka Pratama. In this occasion, I would like to present the rest topic of this presentation. So, I believe that everyone has learned about the general descriptions of what is inquiry-based learning. But you must be questioned, you must be curious about how this strategy would be implemented in the classroom. So here, I would like to explain about the process of this strategy. So in its implementations, this strategy has 5 phases, and the first phase is called orientations, which means the process of giving a stimulations to students. So the role of the teacher in this phase is giving stimulations such as asking questions, suggesting students to read books or other activities which is direct the students into problem-solving preparations. So, providing students with an interactive learning environment is the main purpose of stimulation in this phase, to help students to be active in exploring the subject. Thus, the outcome of this phase is problem statement. And the second phase is conceptualizations, which means the process of addressing question and hypothesis. So, in this phase, students will be given a great opportunity to identify problems that relate to the material, which will then be formulated as hypothesis or temporary answer to problems that have questioned before. So in short, in this phase, we'll produce a professional opinion regarding a learning problem arise. And the next phase is investigation, which means process of do an experiment to collect data. So students have a big chance to collect more data as much as possible to prove that the hypothesis whether it's true or not. So reading literature, observing, interviewing, conducting experiment can be the data source in this space. So the result would be interpreted. And the fourth phase in this in the process is conclusions, means process of interpreting data. So students will conduct a true examinations of the interpretations of the conclusion that has been drawn. And the last phases in this process is discussions, means process of reflections carried out by the discussions. So in this final phase, students can learn about general principles of problem solving and can apply to events in their real life with the same problem to consider the result of the verifications. So we will move to the next discussions. So here we have provided you with a video that we will be analyzed together. So let's watch the video.
I opened it up and there was a root inside.
What's exciting about the inquiry model is that we go far and above what the curriculum expectations are. Kids are invested in their learning and they're able to transfer and apply what they're learning in school to the real world.
Inquiry-based learning allows the students to be the thinkers. Teachers begin their lesson with an idea of where they want to end in mind, but really give the students the opportunity to drive it to that point. So your job, keep working through your procedure. When you all agree, I'll come back and check in with you.
We have guided inquiry, where teachers are guiding students through the curriculum.
Okay, find that 5 milliliters.
And then making a shift into student-driven inquiry, where students use that as prior knowledge and build their own inquiries around that. We want them to be building the foundation for higher level inquiries starting right when we have them in kindergarten.
And once someone finds something, make sure that you tell the rest of the paleontologists.
We found the skull.
Oh, you found the skull?
The teachers developing the guided inquiry model based on the curriculum, but then the students are shaping where they want to go with it.
We're going to go through our lab sheet quickly, and then we're going to get into our experimental groups. They were told that 2 scientists had a mix-up in their lab. They had some seeds, they had some eggs, and now they don't know which are which. The students had the opportunity to decide what they thought would be helpful experiments for us to get to our answer. Instead of opening with a bunch of information and facts and details, the students are given a problem, and then they're the ones who get to drive the experiments.
We're trying to see which one's eggs and which one's seeds, but we don't know. So we're trying to figure out strategies that we can do. We make our steps, and then we test and see what happens. We've been planting them, and we think the seeds will grow and the eggs won't. I think they'll get bigger. Yeah, so once they get bigger, it would like crack open. And then
Teachers are guiding with questions to really get students thinking and learning how to question themselves.
How might that help us figure out which are the eggs and which are the seeds, floating or sinking?
I might think that eggs are heavier than seeds. I like doing it this way because you get to touch what you're actually doing instead of just looking at it.
We started with the inquiry model in science, and as we started to see students getting excited about finding answers to deeper level questions, we saw the power and how that could be implemented throughout the school day.
So I have to stop the video here because this video is quite long enough to watch, but I already watched the entire video, and the rest of the video is the same as before, as preview. So before we start to analyze this video, I would like to explain a little about the identity of this video. So this video was posted by Edutopia to be analyzed to find the information about how discovery or inquiry-based learning would be applied in the classroom. So here we have 4 aspects that would be analyzed, and the first aspect is what is inquiry-based learning. So the video begins with explanation of teachers' opinion on what inquiry-based learning is. So the teacher gave the opinion that a strategy provides a great opportunity for students to collect and process their own data related to the curriculum material. So the teacher's role is only as a guide for what students will learn, and what students are tasked with finding data to be processed as their own understanding. Then, what is so special with inquiry-based learning? So this strategy will train students' critical thinking skill, and each individual must have a lot of questions about something that it exists. So in this strategy, students are expected to be able to ask questions about what they want to know relate to the learning topic to be discussed. And the next aspect that we have noticed from this video is what kind of activity that will be suited with the implementation of the strategy. So the first activity that students did was the teacher asked them to find out how to grow a plant. So the teacher gave a full freedom for students to explore their knowledge independently, which then an understanding of how to grow plants will be arranged in form of sequence or of procedure. And the second activity is about gravity with the ball rolling over the pipeline. So it can be seen in the video that the teacher's role is only to direct what students have to do. So then students will practice directly with the aim of collection data that will be processed as ideas for their understanding. So here also we have highlighted that the essentials of the word experiments. So the word experiments is the most appropriate in the relationship to describe inquiry-based learning. So everything students want to know about something that can be solved by conducting experiments. So the teacher's role can be a problem giver, then students will drive their own experiments. So like in the video, the teacher gives students 2 different types of object, namely seeds and eggs. Then the question is, how do the 2 objects compare? So the experiments that students conduct was to plant this object. So the seeds might grow as planned, but when they're wedged, the two objects, so eggs are clearly heavier than seeds. So students will work in order as problem solving to the question raised. And the last aspect that we have noticed that this strategy is emphasized to improve HOTS or higher order thinking skill of students. So in conclusions, inquiry-based learning is a strategy that will improve the higher order thinking skill of students, where they will train to act as a problem solver, which then they will reflect on their real lives. Thus, the lesson will be enjoyable and meaningful for students. And we are going to discuss about result data that we have listed as an example in this presentation. So here we have a research which title is The Effect of Inquiry-Based Learning Method on the Student's Academic Achievement in Science Course. This research was written by Ali Abdi in 2014 and published by Universal Journal of Education Research. So, the objective of this research is to investigate the effect of inquiry-based learning methods on students' academic achievement on science lessons. And the subject of this research is 45th grade students from 2 different classes. And the instrument that used in this research is academic achievement test was given as pre-test and post-test. And the research design used a quasi-experimental study with non-equivalent groups. And the data analysis is statistical technique was used, such as mean, standard deviation, and one-way ANCOVA test. And the next is about the procedure of the research. So the first procedure is the researcher used 2 treatments in the learning process, namely thought using 5E, that stands for engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate, learning cycle for experimental group, and using traditional method for the control groups. And the second step is observations were made in the 2 different classes. So the experimental group was taught using the 5E learning cycle according to the material in the lesson plan. Then the control group is taught using a direct strategy using a traditional approach, and students are completely passive in the learning process. And the next procedure is academic achievement test was given to both groups as pre-test and post-test include 30 multiple choice items. And the last procedure is in the data analysis, the researchers has used different types of statistical technique, namely mean, standard deviation, and one-way ANCOVA test. So now we will discuss about the findings of the research. So as we can see in the table 1, so the table 1, the better performance shows by the experimental groups than the control groups, which is indicated by the mean value and standard deviation, but it still cannot said to be significant. And in the second table, the table 2 shows the difference in post-test scores between the 2 groups. So the F value is 5.121 with significant value at the level of 0.030, which means that there is a significant difference in the mean value of students taught by using science educations in inquiry-based learning. So, the conclusion of the research is, based on the findings, there is a significant difference between the level of students' achievement being taught with inquiry-based learning with the help of 5E cycle method rather than the traditional methods. So, The indications of success were shown by students who were taught using the 5E learning cycle compared to the students who thought by the traditional method in the research. So next discussions would be the strength of this strategy. So this strategy also has several strengths of its implementation, and the first is inquiry-based learning is a learning model that emphasizes the development of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor aspect in a balanced way so that the learning through this model is considered more meaningful. So students will learn the subject matter with more meaningful. So, and the next is inquiry-based learning can provide space for students to learn according their learning style. So here in this strategy, students can learn based on their own learning style that they preferred. And inquiry-based learning, namely a learning model that is considered to follow the development of modern psychology, which consider learning as a process of changing behavior. So this strategy also helps to improve students' behavior to be better. And then inquiry-based learning can serve the needs of students who have abilities above average, meaning that students who have a good learning abilities will not be hampered by students who are weak in learning. And the next is by using the inquiry-based learning model, learning become livelier and can make students active. So because of its implementation of this strategy, which is fun and enjoyable, the students will be more willing to learn better in the learning process. And the next is inquiry-based learning can form a developed basic concept for students. And next, inquiry-based learning can assist students in using memory and transferring the new learning process situation. So because of they practice a lot in this strategy, so students can reflect their knowledge in the classroom to their real life situations. And inquiry-based learning can provide sufficient time for students to assimilate and accommodate information. So students will be given a big chance to collect and then to process their own data to be their own understanding. Inquiry-based learning encourages students to think and work on their own initiative, be honest, objective, and open. So because of teacher give a big freedom to students to learn, so the students will collect their own informations by their own self. So it will train students' honest feeling in this strategy. And by using the inquiry-based learning model, it can avoid traditional learning method, namely teacher who control the class. So this strategy is using a student-centered approach. So students is more active in all the learning activity in the classrooms. And inquiry-based learning enables students to learn by making use of various types of learning resources. So students are free to use any kind of research in this strategy. And the last strength is inquiry-based learning can train students to learn on their own positively so that they can develop democratic educations. So besides, the strategy has many advantages that can take by the students. This strategy also arise some weaknesses, such as inquiry-based learning is difficult to control the activeness and success on students because every individual in the class, every student in the class has their own activeness, so it will be hard to decide it whether the students active or not in the classroom. And inquiry-based learning is difficult in planning learning because it collides with students' learning habits. And the next is, as long as the learning success criteria are determined by the student's ability to master the subject matter, this strategy seems to be difficult to implement. Like what I said before, every students have their different ability in understanding the material or the subject matter. So teacher cannot be defined where students have whether students will be success or not in their learning process. And the last weakness is sometime in implementing it takes a long time, so that teacher often find it difficult to adjust it to the allotted time. So yes, when the students are collecting the data, they probably need some more times. Therefore, it also affects on the learning process. So the learning process will be longer than the usual. So our last discussions is to conclude this presentation. So discovery or inquiry-based learning is a strategy that aims to train students' level of critical thinking, supported by the big chance to explore the material that will be processed into their understanding. So this strategy have 5 characteristics, namely process focus, investigations, group learning, monitoring the discussion, and real-life application, in which this strategy aims to enable students to act as problem solver in their real life. In the example of the media for implementing the inquiry-based learning strategy, students do more active in the form of playing as a role of problem solver, which will practice their critical thinking skill. And further, the strategy is appropriate to be applied in the classroom given to the very good effect it has in students' learning development. This can be proven by the research that has been done. So where the result shows a significant difference by using this strategy in the classroom. Besides providing many advantages in the learning, implementing this strategy also requires an extra effort in controlling the class and determining the study content of the time. However, most of the students will feel enjoy because this strategy gives students the freedom to experiment with the question they have about something. So I think that's all about our presentations. We do apologize if there is any mistake. So we hope that what have explained before will be useful for us. So for the last words, I say thank you very much for your attention and stay healthy, everyone.